when our nervous systems are grounded and rooted, we are able to go get the results that we want in our life. I think that idea of connecting the dots between how we work at our lives, how productive we are, how we communicate, the results that we get in our life are directly related to our mental agility, our mental wellness, our nervous system regulation.
Today's guest is Cheryl B. Engelhardt. Cheryl is a 2-time Grammy-nominated composer and artist whose music spans commercials, films, meditation programs, and choirs. Her work has been featured in Forbes, Grammy.com, and People, and has been streamed more than 4 million times. A Cornell graduate, she's performed with Sting and Pentatonics and built a career at the intersection of creativity and entrepreneurship. Cheryl is also a certified trauma-informed coach, helping her clients connect a regulated nervous system and with bold creative results. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you.
What is one of the most courageous things you have ever done?
I love that. Right off the bat, we're just getting into it. I think it was this train trip I took in 2022 in January. It was 2 weeks after my best friend had passed away. He and I had written a musical and done a lot of work together. So he was like not just a best friend, he was like a collaborator and a best friend. And he died of cancer during COVID. And I just needed to get out of my house, but also I was exhausted from the grieving, from everything. So I was like, you know what? I could get a little room on a train, go across the country and like stay in bed all day, but like watch, get the movement, get the travel in. But that wasn't the brave thing. I think that was just like, I have crazy ideas and then I do them. I'm a dreamer and implementer. I know there's a lot of people that are just one or the other and they marry each other. I am one of the rare, like I have a crazy idea, then it happens. So I have to kind of watch what I say. But I think the scariest thing and the bravest thing I did was I thought, what if I took my computer and a little keyboard and tried to see if any music came out? And I told my fans over email ahead of time that I was thinking of maybe making an album on this train ride. And that was scary for a couple reasons. One, what if I didn't? Would I look stupid? Would I look like I made a plan and then I didn't do it? Was I just trying to was it clickbait? Like I have all these what would they think if I don't do it? And then the other thing that was scary was that when I say I'm going to do something, I tend to do it. So I knew as soon as I told them I was thinking about doing this, that it would probably happen. And that in and of itself was just, I always have, I think a lot of creators, if not every single creator, has a little bit of what if they don't like it? So knowing that I was going to create something, most likely, what if they didn't like it? But that album that did come out on the train ride, it was an all electronic, I was wearing headphones and doing all the sounds and everything. That is my first Grammy nomination, that album. So that whole process of just hitting send on that email, letting my whole fan base know that I was A, struggling, B, going to do this trip just was calling to me, and C, was going to maybe try to make some music on it. Hitting send that felt very brave for some reason.
Yeah, that's absolutely courageous, completely. And not knowing, I mean, I think, I like the fact that you say, once you put it out there, it happens.
Yeah, I've said crazy things like, oh, what if it would be so fun to tour in Switzerland? And then the next year, my friend's family invites me to their house in Switzerland. And then I meet a guitar player and he takes me on tour opening for this huge act. And I'm like, wait, that's so random. Switzerland, that's so, for me, remember, that's so random. So I really have to, so sometimes I say to my husband, I'm like, what if we did that? He's like, shh. He's like, what is this magic witchy thing that when you say, and I'm like, okay. So I do have to watch it.
Wow. That's brilliant though. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So what happens when people feel nervous about being seen? Because that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
People, they want to be seen. They want to have audience. They want to have fans. But at the same time, it can be nerve-wracking. I mean, let's face it. One of the biggest fears is being on stage.
Public speaking. Yeah. that's like been studied and proven over and over again. I think, at the core, especially for artists who want to be seen, in their head, they're like, this is my goal, is to have this many followers, this many sales, this many, whatever, which requires being seen. Same with entrepreneurs, anyone that's online. In their head, they're like, I want this. But then when it comes time to hit send or post or publish or pitch or, anything, there's a somatic experience separate from like, I know I want this, but then the body's like, sweaty palms, anxiety, and then, enter subconscious self-sabotage where we won't hit send, we won't take the action, or we'll not put all our effort in, or we'll have a little snark or something. Like we'll do something that will lose that opportunity. And I think this, for the most part, it comes back to at some point when we were little, we were seen and it didn't go well. And that can mean a number of things, like someone laughed at us or bullied us or attacked it, like any number of things where someone saw us and it didn't go well. And that little kid version of us needs to be able to be heard and healed. And we have to have a conversation with that younger version of ourselves. And if we don't, that little kid is running the show still today, subconsciously, of course, but that's the thing we feel in our body. It's that little kid memory that's like embedded in our cells saying, hey, if you're seen, it could not go well again. Remember that time? And that's for me, it shows up as anxiety, like raised heart rate. For some people, it's more of like I've seen someone in conflict just like literally throw up and get sick right afterwards, and then they're fine. Wow. Like it can be anything, but it is usually very somatic. It's not thoughts we're having. The thoughts we're having is like, I really want this, or I know I'm safe, but why? What's happening here? So it's very common, performance anxiety in many forms. And now that we have the internet, which allows us to be seen and performing in a lot of different ways, not just standing on stage and singing or speaking, it's very common.
And does that fear ever go away?
It absolutely can go away, because the fear is not necessarily, it's not like I'm scared of this. It's evolution. It's like built in our DNA, right? Like if we're seen, the tiger is going to come get us. Like our body's reacting as if that's the case, right? So if we can go back and heal that first event, the first time that happened, the first time that pattern was created, where when I'm about to be seen, my palms get sweaty, or when I'm about to get seen, I become a total jerk, and then I don't have to be seen because people kick me off stage anyway, right? Like we create some sort of survival mechanism so that thing doesn't happen again. So there are some conversations, some inner child work. There's a whole bunch of different modalities that we can do to go get to the source of it. Of course, there's a lot of somatic things we can do to kind of deal with the symptoms, which there's a lot of stuff out there, like different breathing techniques. There's a lot of, eat something sour. There's a lot of stuff to deal with the symptoms and the effects of anxiety, which is something I had worked on for years and years and years. But I was like, I want to get to the source of it so I cannot have anxiety about maybe being anxious. And the anxiety over whether or not I'm going to have anxiety started to feel like there was something bigger than just putting the Band-Aids on the symptoms, the somatic symptoms. So yeah, you absolutely can get rid of it. I now, like I just a couple months ago was singing on stage it was an arena with this huge vocal band, Pentatonics, and it was for 19,000 people. And there's not one moment in the process where I felt that performance anxiety can't come up for me. Whereas I used to feel it all the time, whether I was standing in front of 10 people or 20. And I think that also comes with experience and trusting yourself and being prepared and knowing that the music's memorized and like all of these there are many factors. But if you've checked all of your normal boxes, you can still have that performance anxiety. But I've done that work to go back and heal, because I had it. I had my moment, and to be able to talk to that little kid and be like, hey, you're safe now. I can give you what you needed then, but didn't receive. I can give that to myself now, and I can give that to you in this conversation. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. So absolutely the fear can go away. Sometimes it will pop up, like you'll feel a moment of like, oh, and I can just say, hey, I've got this. We've healed that. There's no tigers chasing us. That thing's not going to happen again. And you can just kind of have these conversations with those versions of yourself to really mitigate it. And maybe it won't go away
Hmm.
forever, depending on what the thing was and how strong the memory is, but you can absolutely get your power back around it.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Getting your power back around it. I mean, it's, yeah, embracing it and okay, that happened then, it's not happening now. There's a big thing about, being in the moment as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really I mean, there's techniques about like saying 5 things that you see, 5 things that you smell, 5 things that you taste, 5 things that you can feel. And that really brings you back into the present and gets your head to take over a little bit more. Like, hey, like that's still all happening cognitively, right? In the head. And that disconnect between the head and the body is something that is one of the sources of why it continues on. So we don't want to be too much up in our heads, but that's definitely something that you can try to drop into the body. Like, I'm seeing this, I'm feeling this. It is a somatic experience to cognitively say that stuff and then to feel it in your body. Like, okay, I'm feeling wood, I'm feeling the rug, I'm feeling the cold air. And so yeah, anything you can do to connect that cognitive and somatic experience to the present moment, I think is very powerful too.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Listeners, are you hearing all this? Come on, you can do this. If anybody's struggling at this, you can do this. Keep
Absolutely.
listening, and there's going to be a lot of more tips as well. How do you make pivots feel intentional instead of like whiplash?
Yeah, sometimes you just have to, like, stuff comes up in life, circumstances that are coming at you, and it might feel like, okay, this is time to make a change, or this feels right. I often say to my coaching clients, like, don't let your feelings run your business
Hmm.
unless you're being intentional about it, where it's like, okay, I have 2 choices in front of me. And I say choice instead of decision because you can always choose again. Decide, just a tangent here that I love linguistically, semantically. Decide, CIDE, that ending. It's the same ending, the Latin homicide, suicide, genocide. It's to kill something off. So when we think we have a decision, we have to decide something. That internally, linguistically, what's happening is we think that if we choose this one thing, we are killing off the other option. We can never go back to it. We can never choose again. And that sometimes, especially for anyone that doesn't like commitment, it feels like it can feel very like we're trapped inside of the decision, even if both options are totally great. So I use the word choice. When the choice shows up in your life, you can always choose again. Like every morning you wake up, if you're married, you wake up and you're like, I'm choosing to stay married today. I don't feel trapped because tomorrow I could choose to not be married.
Mm.
And I say this to my husband. He's like, I'm like, today I choose you. I choose to stay married. He's like, great.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I may not. But that gives you power, and there is power in choice. So something happens in life, you have a choice. Do I need to move, or do I want to leave this job? And there's a pivot, and it can feel like, oh my God, this is going to change everything. It's going to be too big. And the fear around just moving forward with the choice usually isn't about the choice itself, but about our own capacity to handle the choice and to handle the pivot. So if you are thinking like, oh, I don't want to make this choice yet because what if I hate it and then I can't handle the disappointment, or I can't handle. So one of the things that I tell myself all the time is I am able to handle my own big emotions.
Mm.
I'm able to handle my own big emotions. A lot of people, especially musicians I know that are pitching to try to play a big venue, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to pitch that because like what they're probably going to say no and I don't want to be disappointed." I'm like, "So let me get this clear. We're not taking the action because we're afraid of the no. We're afraid of our own big feeling of disappointment."
Mm.
So that our inability to trust that we can handle our own feelings is actually the thing getting in the way, not the fear of no, or the fear of failure, or the fear, like the stuff that we hear out there. It's just the fear of our own emotions. So if we can say, yeah, I have capacity, or if we can say, you know what, I don't think I have capacity to hold this. What work do I need to do so that I can expand my capacity to be with my own big emotions? That's when you become unstoppable. I forgot what your question was. I have tangented 3 times since you asked.
I think you've answered it. It's absolutely fantastic. And to hear that in the way you've just explained it, having that capacity because of the fear is another way to look at it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The rejection. Yeah. Absolutely. So, what did a messy pivot look like for you?
Hmm. Um, Oh man, I've had a couple in the past since COVID, 2022, 2020,
Mm.
man, like the next 4 years was like, I was like, what is this curse? Um, I'll go to a really simple one that was actually just a creative pivot for me a couple years earlier. For a decade, I put out piano pop singer-songwriter records. I toured with a band, kind of like Sheryl Crow, Sarah Bareilles, Alanis Morissette kind of music. It was me, Cheryl B. Engelhardt.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a really good fan base, and I communicated with them mostly over emails, and they would come to my shows and traveled all over the world. And then I was also a freelance composer writing music for different projects, choirs and commercials and films. And I got an opportunity to go to Greece with an artist residency. And this resident, there were 12 of us. It was like a painter and a sculptor, and I was the musician. And it was this tiny little half abandoned town on a mountain in Greece. You took a ferry and then a taxi and then a goat to get there. Like it was ridiculous. And I was like, all right, I'm going to write a lot of text, like words for some choral pieces that I want to write for this choir. Not thinking that I would have anywhere to actually like do a lot of music, but I got there and they're like, and here's your studio. And I walked in and it was this 2-story high, like stone cave with a grand piano in the middle of it. And I was so glad I brought my really good microphone to record. So I knew I had 2 weeks I would never be able to recreate the echoes in that room, like in a studio somewhere. So I
Mm.
was like, I've got whatever I want to do, I need to do it the time I'm here. And I wrote a bunch of different pieces, 10 6-minute pieces with the intention of trying to see if I could help with anxiety attacks. So instead of just saying, here's calm music, where when your brain's going and you're feeling all the stuff in your body, like that's not going to help, right? It's not big enough. It's not related enough. So these pieces all start like a little dark, a little chaotic, a little fast, almost like, can I meet you at the anxiety attack? And then throughout the 6 minutes, can we slow it down? Can we go from sad to happy? Um, can we kind of unravel together? And that album had no lyrics. And I did a lot of weird vocals and oohs and ahs, and I had a bell. So it was like a bell, piano, and my voices. And I'd like pluck the piano and do these it was a very weird album. It was very experimental. And I was like, I'll just release it to see, but I just wanted to use the space and the echoes.
Mm.
And that album became #1 on iTunes and Amazon and all of these platforms in the new age category. And I was like, but I'm a pop artist. And I started getting more and more, added to playlists. And I was like, am I a new age artist? And then COVID hit and I did another album at home that was kind of in that new age Enya, a couple lyrics here and there. And then the third new age album I did was The Passenger, the one on the train that got the Grammy nomination in new age. So when I had first done that first new age album called Luminary, I was so nervous to tell my fans, hey, I'm going from pop to new age. I think it feels like home. I can
Mm.
have lyrics, I can be esoteric, I can bring in strings and piano and do things, but I don't need to follow this very strict kind of pop verse chorus, bridge, verse chorus format. And I hit send on that email to them and they were like, okay, cool, tell us when the album comes out. And I was so nervous about making this pivot and thinking I was going to lose my whole fan base that I'd built for 15 years. And I was like, shame on me for thinking that they only listen to one kind of music. Like who listens to just one kind of music? And that was a pivot creatively. Like, and I haven't really gone back. I've like incorporated my singer-songwriter stuff in my choral work and some of my new age work, but that was huge for me to say this feels better, and to what I thought at the time was abandon 15 years of a singer-songwriter pop career. And it wasn't that at all. I think usually the pivots they seem bigger when we're approaching them, and then when we're on the other side, we're like, no big deal.
It's cool. It's done.
Yeah, it's cool. That's done.
Yeah.
Oh, I did that. That's why it's so hard to look back and be like, what were the big pivots? Like, yes, I moved, and yes, I separated from my husband. We decided to get back together. Like, those were all pivots as well. And I look back and I'm like, those felt like mountains, and to be on the other side of them is such a relief. And hindsight is 2020.
Absolutely. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome is so tricky for me to talk about, and I hear it so much with musicians and the artists and the creative people, and even entrepreneurs that I work with. I think early on, like in my early 20s, when I was still in college, I was an intern at a hip hop recording studio. Which, for those of you who don't know, it's that genre of music, and recording studios in general, still to this day, but definitely back then, are 99% at the time run by men. And so to be able to come in and be like, hi, I'm like your assistant tech and the intern here. And my next job was at a jingle house with mostly men. I was the tech person there. And I had to kind of step into the room like I knew what I was doing, because I felt like I had to prove something. And I wasn't the secretary, and I wasn't the, person delivering the coffees. Like, that was not, I mean, when I was an intern, I was, but once I became the assistant tech, and then like I really had to, like, the first thing people see is like, you're the girl in the room, so therefore you must be XYZ. So right off the bat, I'm at a disadvantage and have to like I would often just like walk around holding like cables in my arm, so that like it was clear I wasn't going to bring them coffee, right? Like that was a thing. I think I kind of had to beat out the imposter syndrome early on, but I know it's a thing. And I think for most people, imposter syndrome, it feels like there's this narrative of I don't belong here, or I'm not quite good enough. And I think it's much more prevalent with women, although I do know and have spoken to men about it. I think it comes with the idea that there's some bar. And sometimes if you're applying for a job and you need to have XYZ credentials, like, sure, but that's not going to be a catalyst for imposter syndrome. You're just going to be like, am I qualified or am I not? Where the imposter syndrome comes in is where we create the bar. And it's this invisible, unspoken standard that may or may not exist, usually does not. And then we're measuring ourselves up against this imaginary thing versus what our actual skills are. With my clients, I talk a lot about their evidence locker, like this place where we keep all the evidence for reasons we should do something or reasons we shouldn't. And usually the evidence is that we like to gather and we label and is really well organized. It was like all the ways this went bad in the past and the reasons I should never do it again. And what I like to focus on is, hey, are we being very mindful and labeling and being organized and giving as much love and care to the evidence of, hey, remember that time this went well and we didn't celebrate it and we just skipped right over it because we're on to the next thing because we were in survival mode. So I really focus on wins in my group coaching membership. We talk about wins every single call, because even if you don't feel like you have a win, there's an energy around and a learning of, oh, if I can just notice the littlest thing, is it doesn't need to be like I won a Grammy. It can be anything, as like, I didn't want to show up to this meeting, but I went anyway. Like, the wins can actually give you the confidence to stomp out that imposter syndrome. And we just are so good at noticing all the failures, especially if we grew up with someone pointing them out, right? Like, that just got ingrained, that we look at the things that are wrong and go try to fix them rather than celebrate every little thing that went right and build up that evidence bin.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. There's always more negativity to look at than actually what happens if it goes well.
Right.
Look at that.
I mean, I have clients that are, and I honestly, I have had to do this work for myself, get better at celebrating. 10-year anniversary of my mastermind is coming up in a week, in 10 days. And I decided to do 10 days of celebrating. And every day I'm like, oh God, I got to post again. And I'm like, no, this is celebrate. This is like letting it be a thing for me. But I have people that are like, oh my God, this really good thing happened. I'm so surprised. And what I try to do with them is say, let's shift that narrative to, like, instead of I'm so surprised this went well, to of course it went well. So that we're more surprised when it doesn't go well. And we're just normally just like, of course that went well. And let's celebrate. Like, and it's when we point this out, it's really extraordinary when you start noticing, when you're surprised, how often we're surprised that stuff goes well. Like, why wouldn't it? We said it was going to go. We get to say how it's going to go. So if we say it's going to go well, that's not us sitting here crossing our fingers. That's like taking actions, having the conversations, doing our own work to expand and be able to somatically hold success. Like, it's going well because we said so, and we're doing the work. So why are we surprised when it goes well? So that's the kind of the last little, like, thing to adjust around really kicking imposter syndrome out is, of course it went well because I prepared for this. I'm skilled. I've done the work. I'm supported by myself and by the people I've surrounded myself. You can list 100 different ways why that's an of course incident rather than a surprise. Oh my God, I can't believe it,
Yeah, absolutely. What's happening in the nervous system when fear shows up?
Any number of things. It really depends on the person's stress response. You've heard of fight, flight,
Mhm.
freeze, appease. Appease, also known as fawn, meaning just people pleasing and appeasing the other person or situation. Based on early on, again, we go back to childhood to say, okay, when something went wrong really early, we developed a survival mechanism that worked and we got the need met, and we said that's never going to happen again. And for some people that's I'm out of here, I went and hid. For other people it's just I'm just going to stand still. And like I remember I was at like a horse farm with my sister and my mom. I think I was like 6 or 8 or something, and she's 2 years younger than me. And there was a pack of like the barn dogs, like big German shepherds, that were chasing a bunch of crows,
Hmm.
and they were running right at us. And it felt like, and I don't know if my sister actually saw the crows, but I did. And I just stood there and I went, "Ah," and like screamed, right? So kind of like a freeze response. My sister started running and then the dogs started chasing her and one of them bit her. And so that was like a nervous system response that like went really badly, right? And so there's a lot of anxiety around like even having that response. But depending on what your response was early on, like your body is going to kick into that memory and say, okay, like I need to run, or I need to freeze, or I need to like, let me talk it out. Cause when I'm cute and funny, like everyone else around me like calms down, and like that's my role, right? The people like the funny kids are funny because it's how we get love, right? Especially if it's the thing that soothes conflict. There's a million and one different scenarios that could have formed your particular fear response. And so what's happening in the nervous system is it's recalling back to what worked in the past. And the funny thing is that it doesn't matter what you did because you're still alive. So unless you are dead, this conversation does not apply to dead people. But if you are alive, whatever happened worked because you are still alive, right? Like that is the point. The brain is working to keep you alive. Like suffering is not, it doesn't matter, right? I remember being in a program studying this brain science stuff, and someone shared that she had gotten cancer and was really, really sick, and it was weight related. And so she had cut out sugars and all this stuff, and she kicked cancer's butt, and everyone was really happy. She's like, but I still want to eat chocolate, and sometimes I'll eat chocolate even though I know that my body will respond in this way. And why is my brain not saying, hey, that put you through hell because you had a chocolate addiction or whatever the thing is? And the response was, your brain, you're still alive. And maybe your brain is even going so far as saying eating chocolate helped, right? Because suffering doesn't matter. So the fact that you're still alive, no matter what you did to develop some sort of fear response, your nervous system is going to call back, hey, that thing that I did worked. So getting the sweaty palms or hiding or ghosting someone or running away and just, whatever the thing is, it's just recalling back to the first time that worked.
Why do talented people stay invisible? Because that's quite big for a lot of people. We want to be seen, we want to do these grand, big things. But yeah, there's something inside us keeping us invisible.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what we were talking about with there's some subconscious block that is telling us to somehow sabotage or not take the right action or spin our wheels because we were seen a while ago and we haven't healed when that went badly. I really think that like for every client, and I've coached over 1,000 artists and creators and entrepreneurs, and it is always the same thing. There's always so, oh yeah, that time. And it's never been talked about since, right? And the second we start talking about it, we're not reliving it. We don't want to time travel. But that is I think that's a really important little bit of work to do. And it's not that hard to do. So I think that can be the source. I mean, there might be a number of other things and factors to look at, but for the most part of it is a personal, your own, like, oh, I feel like I'm blocking myself. That's usually what the block is. It's not a today version of yourself blocking you. It's a past version of yourself blocking you.
And what's the cost of playing small?
I mean, I think that's very individual. It depends on what it is you truly want. You're probably not getting it or not clear on how to get there, and whether that's a lifestyle or a life choice, or it's a specific career goal or romantic goal. Like if you're playing small and not wanting to take risks because in the past risks didn't go well, um, you're gonna be you're just gonna be with the same what you have, and if that works for you, that works for you. But my guess is there's something a little bit more out there for you.
Mm. Can you give us one courageous step listeners can take today?
This could be the start of having. I mean, I much prefer to do this facilitated, but we've talked enough about it. If you can recall back to an early age where you were seen and it didn't go well, like someone laughed at you or whatever it was, and kind of sit and close your eyes and say, hi, this is me of today, talking to that kid, and say, what did you need, and ask it questions like, what did you feel, and just see what like pops in, and then have that conversation. You can also do this if you write in your dominant hand as you today, and then write out the questions, and then your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, then the younger version of you would be represented by your left hand. And you can just kind of see, it could be a journaling exercise if you're more of a visual writer person, and see what comes out, and see what you can say to that little version of you, and say, hey, can you trust me to handle this now? Are you okay with me doing XYZ? And just loving on that little kid version, that's gonna get you started at the very least.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. If there's one key takeaway you want every listener to walk away with today, what would that be?
The methodology that I've sort of coined is rooted results. And I think it's the idea that when our nervous systems are grounded and rooted, we are able to go get the results that we want in our life. That's the name of my retreat, Rooted Results Retreat. And I think that idea of connecting the dots between how we work at our lives, how productive we are, how we communicate, the results that we get in our life are directly related to our mental agility, our mental wellness, our nervous system regulation, whatever you want to call it. And I see more and more people connecting the dots, but they've been so singular. Marketing and productivity and getting yourself out there is very separate from, self-care and all this stuff. But I don't think that's the case. So if you can really wrap your head around, like, these two things are related, and there's a way to integrate them, and stop being such a cognitive being and drop into the somatics and not have them be fighting each other, I think that opens up a lot of expansion and peace.
That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing. So where can the listeners find you online, your book, your website, Cheryl?
Rootedresults.org is, you can find a lot more about my retreat and my speaking and coaching and all that stuff there as well. My retreat happens every May. It's just we do all of this work in 4 days in this beautiful forest. So that's it's like my favorite thing that I do all year. But all of that is at rootedresults.org.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and your experience with us today. By doing so, you've not only elevated creators and professionals, you're helping people step into greater courage, visibility, and lasting change. I truly acknowledge you for the impact you're making and the lives you're transforming. Cheryl B. Engelhardt.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. We're all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast here. What is your definition of courage?
Oh, I'm so traditional with this one. It's taking action in the face of fear, but also acknowledging that the fear may be a fear of your own emotions. That's my little tag to the traditional definition.